Welcome to Survivor Not by Chance. As I do in every episode, I want to put the disclaimer out and say I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm not a licensed psychologist. I do not make any recommendations for treatment or any recommendations for anyone to be diagnosed with anything specifically. I am a life coach and I have been able to help individuals who deal with trauma. I have my own experiences with trauma and I want to share my experience and hopefully my experiences will be able to help and heal someone. So I'm sending peace, blessings, and joy to each person that's listening to this podcast. And as I told you all last week, I will have special guests coming on my podcast. I specifically wanted to wait to have guests on my podcast because I wanted to have my first guest to be someone extremely special and important to me. And so today I will have my biological mother, Linda, here to speak with us in regards to what's going on in her life and her experience. And we will share some of our experiences together. And hopefully, by listening to our experiences, someone will feel that they can heal. Today, we will be discussing addiction. And so, the definition of addiction is the fact or condition of being addicted to a particular substance, thing, or activity. So I wanted to look up what is the root cause of addiction. According to Google, many individuals seek out not only drugs and alcohol, but other addictions such as eating disorders, compulsive sexual behavior, to escape pain of trauma. So, welcome.
Hi, my name is Linda.
So my mom is here, and we wanted to just share our story together, and we're going to talk about addiction. Can you tell me the first thing you think that could have led you to addiction?
Wanting to be loved.
Do you feel you weren't loved as a child?
No, I wasn't.
And what made you feel that way?
Because I was outcast.
And how did you feel like you were the outcast?
Because I was a child that had a sister that had a father, and my father was not there. And it was like my mother favoritized her and her father, but my father was nowhere to be in sight.
Okay. At what point did you start to find a way to fill that void?
Well, I never found a way to fill that void. What I did was I looked for other things to be into. Like, I looked for other people to call, like step moms or god moms or things like that. I looked other mentors, but it didn't seem to work out because most people didn't have that time to do what they had to do. So I fend for myself.
Okay. At what age did you have your first child?
My first child was 15. I was 15 years old. Having a child at 15, I was a kid myself. Having a kid didn't know any different. Then I just knew that by having a child at 15, I got something that will love me, and I will love it no matter what. So that was something that fulfilled for the moment that emptiness. And then I had another, and then it became complicated because food, clothes, all those things came apart with having children. And I was a kid having kids, not knowing that other responsibilities came with that because no one prepared me for all those things. Just had to learn the hard way of life.
At what point did you feel having a child wasn't fulfilling that void? At what point did you feel you needed to try something different?
Well, it wasn't try anything different. It was like it led it to emptiness and feeling unwhole. When I learned to use drugs, and using drugs fulfill a part of the emptiness, but cause more problems because you need more money. You have still have children, and you had to learn balance. And after a while, you become addicted to the drugs that took over your life. Your life be taken over by the drug because you don't consider nothing but the drug. So you lose yourself. And I got lost in a world trying to find love when I thought having kids would be love, but it became more expensive than I knew, and then it just led to drugs because I felt empty and unfulfilled to taking care of my responsibilities and being a person that was a kid having kids. Teenage pregnancy, you don't know what you're doing. You're a kid, and now you have more responsibility than you ever had, and you just should have just been been a kid. And if I had more guidance in my life, I don't think I would have been a teenage mom.
That's understandable. So I do want to talk more about the pain that you've experienced and how we can just help people understand that there are other people that have had certain experiences that allow them to go to the addiction route in regards to drugs and things. So if you're okay with it.
It's an emptiness inside that is never filled until you find God. That's the only thing that can heal that emptiness and loneliness and that void that's in your life. That's the only thing that can fill that void is God. Without Him, I wouldn't be able to even do this interview with you or even take time to just sit down. Because before I was just constantly running, and not even knowing what time it is, what day it is, or nothing. Because I was too wrapped up into trying to fulfill something that will never be filled, especially not with a job. It only makes it worse.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the experiences that you had that made you feel in love in regards to the trauma that you experienced. I know there have been certain situations where when you were younger, a baby basically, someone violated you. And if you're okay with it, let's just talk a little bit about that experience prior to my birth.
Yeah, I was a kid. I was really a kid.
How old were you?
11.
11 years old.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was a baby.
That is a baby.
Yeah, just a little baby. And
what happened, if you don't
my
mind?
innocence was took from me by someone I trusted and my family trusted. He was someone that was married into the family.
After that experience, what was the after effect of that experience at 11 that you had to deal with?
Being pregnant at 11 and not even know what pregnant really was, and then having an abortion, and that was even more scarier than anything in this world because they sucking stuff out of you. You hear vacuum cleaner in the middle of the abortion. I woke up and they had to sedate me even more, but I just felt like they was doing something wrong to my body that I didn't understand. And as I got older, I realized what they were doing, and that's a traumatic experience for
Yes,
a
it
kid.
is. It absolutely is.
Because especially if you don't know why you even there in the first place, and they using a vacuum cleaner, you just keep hearing it. It don't last long, but you just hear a vacuum cleaner, and you know they sticking it inside your body, sucking out everything. It's scary.
I can imagine.
Because when I woke up, all I wanted was my mom, and she wasn't even there.
Oh, wow. Who took you?
My mom took me, but when I woke up and got dressed, I left the place and she had to come look for me.
Oh, my goodness.
And I went back to the diner where we went to that morning, and I sat there waiting for her because the ladies inside there were talking about saying she was being grown or being fresh
Oh,
or
my.
what she in here for. And I wasn't sedate. They didn't even sedate me heavily. I heard everything that they said about me, and they didn't even know that somebody does something bad to me. And I heard them talking about me. And that's why I woke up, got dressed, and left.
Wow.
And went to the diner where me and my mom had breakfast, and my mom came back to me looking for me. And I was in another state.
You went to another state?
Yep, another state.
What state did you go to?
New York.
Oh, my goodness.
I was in New York.
At 11 years old?
Yep, 11 years old in New York, and I had an abortion.
Wow. That is traumatic all in its own self. And I honestly, once I learned your story and your experiences, it allowed me to be more sympathetic to you and allowed me to be more sympathetic to your experiences, and which allowed me to understand why unconditional love is so valid and why we need it to share between each other.
It's like sometimes, even when I think back to it, it just leaves a hollow feeling inside of me because, like, wow, I lived through that, and for a long time, it was a secret.
Yeah.
And you're only as sick as your secret, and that's why I don't have no secrets no more. I don't live in secret. My life is an open book. If I do it, I do it. If I don't, I don't. I'ma simply say this is what I'm doing. I don't have to hide from nobody because I hid so long by being hurt and the pain and deceitfulness that went through my family, and not only my family, it's a lot of families
Yes.
that's living through these secrets,
Yes.
and it makes people sick. And
Yeah.
you're only as sick as your secrets.
Mm.
If you allow those secrets to just keep being a secret, that's only making you sicker, and that's why it's so many people out there on drugs, so many people out there on alcohol. It's the same thing. It's a drug. They think it's not because it's legal. It does not mean it's not. It means that it's just another way the government is getting money off of it, so that they legalized it so that they can make a profit off of it, because they feel we're going to do it anyway, so they might as well make money off of it. So that's the way the government capitalizes off of these addictions. If you look on every corner in the city of Newark, there's a liquor store.
Yes, it is.
And by it being a liquor store, it does not mean that it's okay.
Right.
It means they're getting their tax money and they're opening at the time that they want it open and the time that they want it closed. But then there's a bootlegger because of the addiction of being an alcoholic. Every corner you go, it's a liquor store. And they feel it's okay to be an alcoholic. It's not okay to be addicted to anything.
That's right.
No drug is better than the other. Any addiction is something that's bad, and no addiction is worse or better than the other. It's still an addiction, and people need to learn that you need to get other things to help you besides the drugs, the alcohol, or even if you're a sex addict. Get help because you need help.
And I think too that where we as a people in this entire human race, where we're suffering is because of the silence that you speak of. So, you know, my goal is to help end the silence of childhood trauma, because we're taught, you know, this happened to you, be quiet. Don't say anything to anybody. Nobody needs to know. But that child is secretly dying inside every day, little by little, because they're holding on to these secrets.
What happens in this house stays in this house.
Exactly.
Is what I heard my whole life. And it's not a good thing, because there's children that are being hurt in their own homes, being molested, being raped, sodomized, touched, and they keep it a secret. And those children grow up and they wind up on drugs. They wind up alcoholics. They wind up sex addicts, prostitutes. They sell their bodies because their body was took from them. So now they're going to make a profit off of something that was took from them. And it's sad because nobody's looking at the human being that it was done to.
Exactly. And that's the issue. So I'm trying to promote inner healing, and I'm trying to promote inner peace. And those are two things that you cannot get from anyone in this world besides God and yourself.
Yep. And I became peaceful within myself because I learned to talk to God and really seek his help, because I couldn't help myself anymore. I couldn't even face looking in the mirror. I would look in the mirror and see a person that I was disgusted with. It wasn't because of what I'd done to myself. It was because of what people had done to me. And it made me feel ugly on the outside and the inside. And then one day God came inside my heart and made me better. And it's a process each day. Every day I have to shed off something that was old to be a new creature. Every day I wake up, I ask God to fix me, to make me better, to make me think better, to feel better, to look better. And most people that's been raped, they feel dirty. And it's a dirty feeling that you can never wash off, that you can never cleanse yourself enough. It's only a feeling that God can remove, because man put it there. And by man putting it there, the only person that can remove it is God, because you'll always feel empty and worthless until God removes that feeling from you. And most people don't talk about that. They hide that feeling, and they pretend everything's okay in front of others. And then when nobody's there, they're crying at night or can't sleep at night. And insomnia comes from the secrets. That's what the insomnia is from. The secret. Those secrets make you sick. You gotta expose those. It's not your fault. It's their fault. And
Mm.
they make you feel like it's all your fault. Like you asked for this. It's not nothing you asked for. It's something they chose to do to you, which they shouldn't have done. And then they manipulate you to believing that it's your fault. And it's not your fault. For those that are listening, that are going through the same things, it is not your fault. It's that person's fault. That person is at fault for doing that to you, and do not allow them to keep making you feel as sick as them, because they are sick, not you. And they need help. And how you help them is tell